The Battle for Willow Creek Pond. It was a warm October evening in Jerusalem when my phone buzzed with a call that turned my world upside down. I was sipping coffee in a bustling cafe, the Mediterranean sunset casting golden rays over the ancient city, when my neighbor Clara Hensley's name flashed on the screen. Clara, a retired librarian with a knack for noticing things others missed, wasn't one for drama. So when her voice trembled with fury, I knew something was terribly wrong. "James, they're draining your pond," she said, her words sharp and urgent. Margaret Voss and her HOA cronies showed up with industrial pumps. "It's a massacre. You need to get home now." My grandfather's koi pond, a serene centerpiece of our family's property in Willow Creek Estates, Arizona, wasn't just a water feature. It was a legacy built in 1943 with stones he'd gathered from every state he crossed on his way home from the war. For 80 years, it had been a sanctuary, home to koi named Hope and Serenity, their descendants still swimming in its crystal waters. It was also the cornerstone of my $15 million bridge project, a sustainable design that hinged on proving long-term ecosystem management. Without that pond, my career was at stake. I booked the first flight home, my mind racing. Margaret Voss, the HOA president, had been gunning for my pond since she moved into our neighborhood 3 years ago. Her excuse? It was a health hazard. Never mind that I maintained it with professional filtration systems and regular testing. This wasn't about mosquitoes or bacteria. This was personal. When I landed in Phoenix 14 hours later, the stench hit me before I even reached the backyard. The pond was gone, replaced by a stinking crater of black mud and dead fish. Serenity, the 20-year-old koi my grandfather had cherished, lay lifeless in a puddle, her orange scales dulled by death. I knelt beside the ruin, grief and rage churning in my chest. Clara appeared, her face etched with guilt. "I tried to stop them, James. I called the police, but they said it was a civil matter. By the time I got anyone to listen, it was too late." Margaret had planned this perfectly, striking while I was 6,000 miles away. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. That pond wasn't just my family's heart, it was the key to a multi-million-dollar deal, and I had partners ready to pull out if I gave the word. This was war. Margaret Voss wasn't your typical HOA tyrant. She'd moved to Willow Creek after a spectacular fall from grace, a bankruptcy that made headlines in the local business journal. Her supposed ex-husband, Leonard Voss, had run an investment scam that cost investors millions, leaving Margaret to downsize from a mansion to a modest rental in our neighborhood. Instead of lying low, she'd clawed her way to HOA president, promising to elevate property values with an iron fist. My pond, with its old-world charm, didn't fit her vision of suburban perfection. Clara had been documenting Margaret's reign of terror for months, her phone always ready to capture the HOA's overreach. Her live stream of the pond's destruction went viral, racking up 50,000 views overnight. Neighbors and strangers alike flooded the comments with their own HOA horror stories, fueling a hashtag, #SaveJamesPond. But the damage was done. Margaret stood at the edge of the crater, smiling coldly as she declared the emergency health remediation complete. Then she handed me a $50,000 bill for hazardous waste removal, a grotesque euphemism for my grandfather's koi. The real blow came when my business partner, Nathan Brooks, called with dire news. The Environmental Compliance Board was questioning our bridge project's ecological certification. Without the pond's 80-year record of ecosystem stability, our $15 million contract was on the brink of collapse. Margaret hadn't just killed my fish, targeted my livelihood. I stormed into the HOA office, Clara trailing me with her camera rolling. Margaret sat behind her desk, her white blazer pristine, her smile venomous. "James, I'm glad you're finally concerned about community health," she purred, handing me a folder of fabricated complaints about mosquitoes and bacteria. When I demanded proof of her authority, she cited an obscure HOA bylaw, claiming clear and present danger justified her actions. The lies were so polished I almost admired her audacity. Almost. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. "Mrs. Voss, where's the documentation for these complaints? And why couldn't this wait until James was back?" Margaret's mask slipped for a split second, her eyes narrowing. "Confidential," she snapped. "Environmental hazards don't wait for travel schedules." As we left, she delivered a final jab. "We're assessing soil quality tomorrow. We may need to excavate further." That night, I pored over my grandfather's records, desperate for a lifeline. Buried in a 1943 property survey, I found it. The pond wasn't just decorative, it was part of Willow Creek's flood control system, managing stormwater runoff. Margaret's health emergency was a sham, and I had proof. But Clara's next call stopped me cold. "James, I've been digging into Margaret's past," she said, her voice electric with discovery. "Leonard Voss isn't her ex-husband. He's her partner, and they're meeting with contractors right now about a construction project in our neighborhood." We crouched behind a neighbor's hedge, Clara's telephoto lens capturing Margaret and Leonard surveying the pond's crater. Leonard held blueprints, but I recognized the schematics from my engineering work. This wasn't a pedestrian bridge, as their permit claimed it was a pipeline, designed to funnel wastewater from a nearby shopping complex through our quiet streets. The pond's natural filtration had been blocking their plan, exposing their dirty secret, a 15-year-old contamination scandal tied to Horizon Chemicals, a company with a history of environmental crimes. Clara's research uncovered the chilling truth. Margaret had been a lawyer for Horizon during a 2010 lawsuit, defending them against claims of illegal dumping that killed 7 residents and sickened dozens. The pond, with its pristine water, was a living rebuke to their cover-up. By destroying it, they could bury their crimes under a pipeline disguised as community improvement. My lawyer confirmed the conspiracy. "This is premeditated," he said, spreading their permits across his desk. Margaret manufactured the emergency to justify excavation, timed perfectly with their pipeline application. If they prove contamination, the city can fast-track their project without community input. The stakes were staggering. They weren't just stealing my land, they were bypassing democracy. Then Hurricane Elena hit. A tropical storm turned monster. It dumped unprecedented rain on Willow Creek. Without the pond's regulation, 12 homes flooded, including Mrs. Larson's, a 78-year-old widow who'd never seen water in her basement. She called me, her voice thick with regret. "James, I'm so sorry. Margaret told me 5 years ago she'd make the wealthy pay for ruining her life. I thought she was just bitter. Now I see she's been planning this all along." Clara's final bombshell came at midnight. Margaret worked for the law firm that shielded Horizon in 2010, she said, spreading EPA records across her kitchen table. She supervised the destruction of evidence, knowing they were poisoning us. The puzzle was complete. Margaret wasn't just a vengeful bureaucrat. She was Horizon's enforcer, and my pond was her first target. The EPA moved fast, triggered by Clara's complaint about water contamination. Agent Laura Thompson met me downtown, her expression grim. "We've been watching Horizon for years. Your pond sat above a plume of contaminated groundwater they've been hiding since 2010. We need your help to nail them." Clara's footage of Margaret's cash-stuffed meetings with Horizon reps sealed the case. But the real breakthrough was a USB drive Margaret left behind when she vanished. It held 15 years of evidence, bribes, forged documents, and recordings of Horizon executives discussing acceptable casualty rates, like they were balancing a budget. A tearful video confession revealed Margaret's twisted motive. Her daughter's illness, linked to Horizon's toxins, had trapped her in their web. Leonard, posing as her ex, was a Horizon operative tasked with neutralizing threats like my pond. The arrests made national news. Leonard was nabbed in Nevada, coordinating similar schemes. 2 Horizon executives and a corrupt county inspector faced charges of conspiracy, environmental terrorism, and racketeering. The FBI uncovered Horizon's crimes in 17 communities across 8 states. My little pond had cracked open a corporate empire. The EPA offered my firm a $100 million contract to design environmental monitoring systems for contaminated sites, praising my sustainable water expertise. Nathan's Bridge project was revived, with investors now eager to expand our partnership. The Justice Department funded the pond's restoration as a model for community recovery, complete with a memorial garden for Horizon's victims. As contractors rebuilt the pond, they found my grandfather's 1943 design had been neutralizing Horizon's chemicals for decades, protecting Willow Creek from worse harm. We restored it with modern sensors, and new koi swam in its clear waters. Clara turned our fight into a documentary, inspiring millions to demand environmental justice. 2 years later, Nathan called with the perfect coda. The state wants 12 more bridges like ours, each with a koi pond as the centerpiece. Your grandfather's design is the best natural filtration system they've ever seen. We're looking at $200 million. I stood by the pond, the sun glinting off the water where my grandfather's ashes rested, knowing his legacy would outlive us all. Margaret, under a plea deal, served probation, helping other communities fight corporate polluters. In her final video, she said. Ordinary people have power when they stand together. Even the biggest corporations can't hide forever. She was right. Truth surfaces, and justice, though slow, is relentless. What do you think about this story of greed, betrayal, and redemption? Have you faced injustice or abuse of power in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective on standing up to bullies, whether they're bureaucrats or corporations. Let's start a conversation about fighting for what's right.